In a quiet apartment in Dearborn, Michigan, one of the last few conservative Muslim communities in the area, the scent of cardamom and cinnamon lingered in the air. Sophie poured hot chai into 2 porcelain cups.
You should do it too. No more headaches, no more heavy brushing. It's such a relief.
Sophie smiled, shaking her head slightly, her long dark hair tucked safely under her scarf.
You know he wouldn't like it.
But what about how you feel?
Layla asked, her voice soft but piercing. Sophie didn't answer. Her fingers brushed her hijab, as if already feeling the weight she wasn't allowed to remove. That night, Sophie lay beside Nashit, her husband, staring at the ceiling fan spinning overhead.
What would you say if I cut my hair short?
She asked carefully. Nashit turned to her slowly, his face unreadable.
Why would you do that?
I thought maybe it'd be easier to manage. It's hot. It gives me headaches.
I love your hair long. You don't need to cut it.
Please.
She whispered. He turned away.
I don't like short hair. It's for boys. I want to sleep.
Week after week, she asked again. Always the same answer, always the same tone, calm, closed, final. Her voice cracked, her pleas softened. Nothing changed. She called Layla one evening.
He keeps saying no, every time.
It's your hair. He doesn't own it.
Layla said gently. But to Sophie, it wasn't that simple. 2 years later, in the thick of summer, sweat ran down her neck no matter how strong the fan blew. Her long hair clung to her skin beneath the hijab like wet ropes. That night, she faced Nashit again.
I'm sweating constantly. I'm getting migraines. I want a short, undercut pixie.
Nashit's face twisted with anger.
No, you are not a boy to cut your hair like that.
Then, maybe a bob?
She tried, her voice small. After a long silence, he muttered,
Fine. Just this once, but never again.
The next morning, Sophie stood outside the salon, staring at her reflection in the glass. Her long black hair was damped with heat. She was supposed to get a bob, but she didn't want a bob. Inside, the stylist smiled warmly. What are we doing today? Sophie looked straight into the mirror. I want an undercut pixie. You're sure? Yes, cut it short. The cape went on. The scissors sliced through the thick ponytail. The weight fell away with a shiver. Then came the clippers. As the buzzing touched the back of her head, a strange mix of fear and freedom bloomed in her chest. When it was over, she ran her fingers over the short layers, the exposed nape. Her reflection stared back, lighter, cooler, stronger. She wrapped her hijab back around her head and stepped outside. That evening, Sophie walked into the house. Nashit sat on the couch, scrolling his phone. You're back, he said, without looking. Take off your hijab. Her breath caught. She hesitated. Didn't you hear me? Slowly, she unwrapped it. Silence. Then rage. What did you do? He barked, standing up.
I told you no.
I cut it.
You humiliated me.
His fists clenched.
It's just hair.
You'll regret this.
I was suffering. I couldn't.
You disobeyed me.
And then he stormed to the drawer, yanked it open, and pulled out the electric clippers. She backed away, horrified.
No, Nashik, please.
He forced her into a chair, flicked the clippers on, and buzzed the rest of her hair off, the parts she had kept long on top, until her head was completely bald. Her tears mixed with strands on the floor. Then he held up a leather strap. I won't use it, he said coldly, but you'll remember the next time you defy me. That night, while he slept, Sophie quietly packed a bag and ran. Sophie ran until her legs went numb, her chest heaving with every breath, heart pounding wildly against her ribs. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. She darted through unfamiliar alleys, past shuttered storefronts, the flickering streetlights casting shattered reflections on the pavement like broken pieces of memory. The night wind slapped her face, sharp and biting. Her hands clenched the strap of her bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then a sudden gust surged from behind. The hastily wrapped headscarf loosened and tore free, soaring into the air like a broken-winged black bird. She froze. Her instinct was to chase after it, but she didn't. Then a voice pierced the quiet.
Are you okay?
Sophie flinched. She looked up. A woman, mid-50s maybe, stood a few feet away, wearing a simple wool coat and a loose hijab. Her hands were visible, empty. Her voice gentle.
I work with the shelter down the street. You're not in trouble. I just saw you here. You looked cold.
Sophie couldn't speak. She nodded slightly, eyes wide. The woman crouched down, keeping her distance.
Do you need somewhere safe to rest?
Sophie's voice cracked as she whispered.
I don't have anywhere.
That's okay. You do now.
The woman helped her up slowly, like one lifts something breakable. Her legs shook beneath her. Her breath hitched as she walked. Every step away from him felt unreal. Inside the shelter, the warmth hit her like memory. Faint smells of soup, old blankets, and lavender detergent wrapped around her like a second skin.
The first few weeks were quiet. Not the same silence as before. One day, while organizing books in the small common area, Sophie froze. She saw a figure standing in the doorway. Nashit. Her heart pounded in her chest, panic flooding over her. She had no idea how he had found her. He was calm, but there was an undeniable intensity in his eyes. Sophie stepped back, her body trembling, memories of his cruelty flooding her mind. The weight of his presence felt suffocating, as if the walls were collapsing around her once again. Nashit stepped forward, reaching out to grab Sophie's hand, pulling her toward him.
Come home,
he ordered, his voice stern, as if she had no choice in the matter. Sophie looked down at his hand, feeling the coldness of his grip. She tried to pull her hand away, struggling to escape his tight hold, but Nashit tightened his grip. Fear surged like a crashing wave, but Sophie didn't let herself weaken.
No, I'm not going anywhere,
she shouted, her voice firm, even though her heart was racing. From the doorway, Lila, Sophie's best friend, instantly sensed the danger. She quietly pulled out her phone and dialed a number, standing still in the shadows so Nashit wouldn't notice. Once the call was made, Lila stepped forward. Her eyes burned with determination as she saw Nashit gripping Sophie's hand. Without hesitation, Lila moved directly toward them, stepping between the two. You need to leave. Nashit glared at Lila, but she didn't flinch. She stood her ground, refusing to let him advance any further.
Let her go.
Nashit shot one last angry look at Lila, but didn't dare act further when the sound of sirens reached the distance. He glanced once more at Sophie and Lila, then turned and left, disappearing into the night. Lila rushed to Sophie's side, taking her hand firmly. You're safe now. I won't let him hurt you again. Sophie nodded, tears welling in her eyes. The next morning, Sophie sat at the table with a pen and a piece of paper. She began writing, everything, the nights, the fear, the clippers buzzing in her ears, the helplessness. The next morning, she handed the letter to Fatima. If this can help even one woman, Sophie said, I want her to know she's not alone. Then came the court date. She stood outside the courthouse in a navy coat, her newly grown pixie styled neatly under a soft wool beanie. Her palms were sweaty, but her spine was straight. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. Inside the courtroom, Nashit sat across the aisle, his face unreadable. He wore a clean suit. The same hands that once held the razor now sat folded in feigned calm. Sophie took the stand. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, she found her rhythm. Each sentence became firmer.
He told me I humiliated him just because I wanted a haircut. When I tried to leave, he pinned me to the chair and shaved my head himself. I cried. He laughed.
The courtroom was silent.
He said I belonged to him, that he'd fix me. And then he raised a leather belt and said if I moved, I'd get worse.
Sophie paused. Her eyes found the judge.
I ran that night. I ran barefoot. I didn't even grab my shoes. I thought I would die.
When it was Nashid's turn, he tried to deflect. He cited cultural misunderstandings, wife duties, and a moment of anger. But the jury didn't buy it. Not when they saw the photos. Not when they heard the recordings Sophie had saved. Not when the counselor described the trauma patterns with clinical certainty. 6 months later, Sophie stood on a stage at a local women's center. The lights were soft. The room was full. Survivors, students, social workers, and strangers who only knew her as the girl with the silent strength. She held the microphone with both hands.
For a long time, I thought obedience was love. I thought suffering quietly was noble, that cutting my hair made me a disgrace. But I was wrong.
She scanned the crowd.
He said I'd regret it, that no one would help me, that I was alone.
A pause, then a soft, knowing smile.
But I wasn't.
Fatima sat in the front row, wiping away a tear.
Every time we choose freedom, we give someone else permission to do the same. And today, I stand here, not as a victim, not as a wife, not even as a survivor, but as a woman who said no and lived.
The room rose in a standing ovation. And for the first time in years, Sophie didn't flinch. She stood tall,